the characters from I think it was season 14 when like Claire's class graduated. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm not watching this anymore. Like, I don't care about the rest of these characters, but I've watched it and I'm hooked again. So
It's like a vicious circle.
it really, really is. It really is. I feel like, I do feel like in some ways the next class does kind of have the feel of the original or of the next generation. It's a little more raw. The topics that they're covering. For a while there, it just got really, kind of like your typical team soap opera-y type thing. And there's a few seasons. I know you guys haven't seen some of the later seasons. It's going to be a rough ride, but
we're truly dreading it. I just really
we are terrified of the later seasons of Degrassi.
You kind of I don't know when I kind of got like re-engaged. I had a really hard time with season 8 and 9. Those were the two that I had a really difficult time with. And there's some great episodes in like 10, 11, and 12, but there's some not so great episodes too. There's some really interesting characters coming up. There's some, there's I don't want to give anything away, but to you guys since you haven't seen it, but there's some good things coming. It'll be a little rough, but it'll be worth it.
Okay. That helps.
It's reassuring.
So, do you have any, like, weird, unpopular opinions of the show? Like, do you have any weird ships, or do you have any, like, favorite characters that are out of left field?
I really, and I know this isn't a very unpopular opinion, I actually really like Toby at times. I agree. Sometimes he's terrible. I totally agree. I actually kind of liked the Toby and Holly J ship.
I kind of like it too.
I really did. I think I just think that I don't know. There was something that I really, really just loved about that, and I was really disappointed with the way that it turned out. Sort of, except that she's kind of terrible at this point, so it's
yes. Does Holly J get better?
She does. I know you guys have talked about that a lot, but it will happen. She definitely turns around. I feel like that they have a lot of characters that really do start off like really, really, really terrible in the beginning. Paige, when I first started watching, I was like, oh my God, I hate Paige. And because she was just awful the first season, and she slowly became one of my favorites. So
I feel like what Degrassi does with like these, like they start off as these like one-dimensional mean girl characters and then make them so interesting. Like it's like what Gossip Girl did with Blair, like just like turning them into like the most interesting and like the most interesting characters of the show that you just like feel all this empathy for because you feel like you know them and they seem like the most like out of everyone, like they have the most happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Holly J definitely she has some good arcs coming up too. It's going to take a little while, but yeah, I think that is kind of like the beauty of the show is that it's not just a one-dimensional character. Even like some of, Emma is terrible at times, and it's not, there's just, I feel like they do a great job kind of fleshing out most of the characters. There's a couple. I feel like Hazel never really got fleshed out very well. I feel like there's so much more they could have done with her. And there's a couple of other examples, but for the most part, I feel like they do a pretty good job fleshing them out.
Yeah, totally. And I think we have a Johnny DeMarco fleshing out in our future, I think.
Yes, yeah. So Johnny DeMarco's an interesting character because he gets a little better and then a little worse.
Yeah.
And then a little better. It kind of, he does some pretty, something in particular that I'm thinking there's a pretty terrible thing that he does in I think season 8 or 9. But he definitely ends up redeeming himself, I feel like. So I always liked him too. I kind of liked him from the beginning. So
Thank you.
Not the only one, Kelsey.
But do you want to date him?
Considering that when I was probably like in my late 20s or early 30s when he first came on this show, so I'm going to say no. Now, when I was that age, that probably would have been the type of guy that I would have dated, but...
Thank you.
Interesting.
I'm not alone.
Who is
No,
your,
it's not.
like, Degrassi guy? Who is your, like...
Or girl. We're not judging.
Who do you have hard eyes for on the show?
So, as far as junior high and high goes, it was always Joey. I was a huge Joey fan. He, and I know, I think you guys have said a couple of times on the show that people have told you that you won't like him as much if you watch the earlier seasons. And I mean, I disagree. I mean, I think it's kind of like with Paige or Holly J. He starts off pretty terrible. He kind of starts off as like the bully, but he definitely gets better. He was always my favorite, like when I was a kid. And as far as the next generation, and I can say this now because he is older now, but Jake Epstein is just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
God damn. We saw him in a play and he was like shirtless or in his underwear for a lot of it. And I'm I haven't recovered.
Was it beautiful?
No.
Was that?
No, we saw him in this, it was off Broadway and it was a play called Straight and it was just, it was magic.
Yeah. I think like the tagline was like, Ben loves beer, sports, and Emily, period. And Chris.
It was not a good tagline.
But it kind of summed up what it was. It was like he was uncomfortable with his sexuality and like living a lie.
Yeah, but he just, I was always a big Craig fan from like day one, just his arc. I'm a social worker, and I used to work for Child Protective Services, so his first storyline, I think I was working for Child Protective Services when I saw that episode, so his first storyline was very, like, personal to me, just things I had seen, people go through, and so I think that's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards him, and he grew up very, very nicely, so.
He really, goddamn.
He really did. He really did.
He is a beautiful man.
He is.
With the voice of an angel.
I know. You guys watched the reunion episode, right?
Yeah. Oh, God damn
Next
it.
class when he Tristan is. Yeah, I think Tristan was all of us in that moment. But.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the only next class exposure we've had.
Yeah. I feel like that if you were to watch it, like, now, not knowing the characters, you probably wouldn't enjoy it as much. But, with Degrassi, it's kind of like, do you guys watch Doctor Who by any chance?
Yes.
Okay. So it's kind of like every time the Doctor regenerates, it takes a little bit to get used to the new Doctor. Like, I was a huge Tennant fan. I love David Tennant. And when Matt Smith came along, I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like, this is just, but I think over time, they just end up growing on you. And it's this kind of the same thing with the characters. They do end up really, really growing on you after a while.
That's comforting. Because, I definitely, with every regeneration, I'm like, oh, I don't know. And then, like, after a couple episodes, like, and then by the time they're leaving, you're just like, but I can't live without you now.
I know, exactly. Like, I just remember I had a hard time transitioning from Eccleston to Tennant, and Tennant ended up being my favorite, so...
Because he's amazing.
Yeah, but it's kind of like that in the sense that, I mean, most of the characters, because season 8, there is a big transition. There's a lot of characters leaving and a lot of new ones coming in. And I'm just like, oh my God, everybody is terrible. Everybody's awful. But I mean, because that's when like Claire comes in as a recurring character and her class and Sav's sister. And the first couple of episodes of season 8, I'm like, I hate all these people. But they definitely end up growing on you a little. So
I'm looking forward to the return. Well, not the return. I just haven't seen him since he was on the show. But I'm looking forward to like Declan and his strong as hell eyebrows.
Oh my gosh, he ends up ends up being a pretty decent character too. I hated him at first so much when he came in, but God, I guess I just really hate everybody at first. I don't know.
Just don't like.
I have a hard time with change.
We're slow to trust.
Yeah, I think season 8 was definitely where I dropped off originally. I remember like Claire and like it's Snake's godson or whatever, and Casey, and I remember all of those people getting there and watching for a little bit, but then I was just like, I don't care about any of these people anymore. I'm not watching it anymore.
Yeah. It's you kind of just have to power through. Season 8 and season 9, like I said, for me personally, those were the hard ones. I hear people saying a lot of like negative things about season 11. I think like 11 and 12 get a lot of negative things said, but to me 9 and 8 were probably the worst. But
just the transition period.
yeah, it was a little rough there, but
yeah, I can also see it being compared to like, did you ever watch Skins, where they like reboot their whole entire cast every 2 seasons?
Yeah, but at least like between 2 and 3, they had like Effie as the like bridge.
Anchor.
But then like by the time we got to season 5, I just totally dropped off because like it was a totally new group, and I was like, no, I hate it. Bye.
I still watched it.
I feel like you do kind of need those transition characters, and I feel like that's why a lot of, because I one of the reasons I love your podcast is that because I am in an age group where a lot of the people that, I mean, other than the fact that you guys are just great, but
Thank you.
and very entertaining, but I don't have many friends my age. I have friends my age that watch junior high, but not many that watch The Next Generation because we were all in college at the time, and it was just a little different. So I don't get to like talk to Degrassi a lot. So I'm loving the podcast. But I think that those of us that did watch in junior high, I don't think I would have gotten into the character of Emma had I not like remembered her being born on Degrassi Junior High and seeing, Snake, and it's always just such a delight when like in the earlier seasons when you would see like some of the old characters coming back, and even in I think it was in the first episode of season 2 when Spike's having her birthday party.
Yeah.
For that scene, there's a guy in the background that they don't make any mention to, but I'm almost 100% positive that is a character from the Next Generation, or from junior high.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's and now I can't think of his name. It'll come to me, but I love that. It's like they don't make any mention of it, but he's just kind of there. So,
question: do you think the Wheels nickname is inappropriate after everything that happens to him?
So, I feel like that it was I don't know if this is where the writers really had an idea of the character going. If they did, that was very bad planning. But his name was Wheels. I think someone may have told you because his last name was Wheeler. Yeah. So that was like way before. I feel like that was poor planning on the writers' part. It does just bring up, he was probably the most tragic character on junior high. He had a lot of bad things happen to him. And I mean, in real life, I don't know if you guys happened with the actor, but he died. And I don't think his family knew till like years later, like a couple years later or something.
That. Yeah. It's the saddest article I've ever read.
It really, really is. It was terrible. When I saw it, I was like, no, not Wheels. Wheels, another fun fact about Wheels, he always wore the tightest pants. Like, if you guys go back and watch junior high, are you guys going to go back and do that?
I mean, probably.
We're talking about it. We're kind of figuring it out right now. We're going to play it by ear. But, like, our current plan, maybe, is to finish Next Generation and then jump right into next class. This way we don't lose momentum, and then when we catch up with next class, if that ever happens before we're like 60, when how they take like intermissions and like breaks between like seasons or whatever, we're gonna go back and do like junior high and high like during those intermission breaks so that we're not taking time off, and we'll like be able to fill up on everything.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what you guys think of it from like a perspective of not, because when I watched it, I was around that age. So, there's some shows that just don't hold up when you get older, and there's some shows that you like just because of the nostalgia. And I think for Degrassi Junior High, that's a lot of what it is for me. But I mean, the acting's not great. Like, it's can be very, it's very cringeworthy at moments, but overall,